Good evening, everybody. This is Maxine Johns here, and welcome to another episode of She is Empowered interview series right here on Miss Hennessy TV. Tonight, I am so excited to finally pin this woman down. Like, let me tell you, we all do our thing from home, and obviously with lockdown right now, days roll into nights. We don't even know what's up until the children start asking us for food. But this woman has been consistently on her grind, doing it for not only the culture but just female DJs everywhere. This is my beautiful, beautiful friend, the amazing DJ Dee. Thank you so much for coming on the show, my love. How are
Hi.
you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor to be on.
Oh, you are just so welcome, and it's just so good to have you because I know you're so busy and you're doing so many things, but you're always repping, you're always presenting and representing hip hop to the fullest, even with the backdrop of the vinyl and the decks and everything. This is you, quintessentially DJ Dee. I couldn't not at least try to have you on the series to talk about the incredible journey and career that you've had and just how you juggle everything. Like, congrats on that for starters, from a mother to a mother. Okay. How
It's,
how is everything going in lockdown? Obviously, you've got the little one. How is it going for you?
well, I was going to say, when you make me sound so busy, I'm like, we're in lockdown, but it's actually 100% true. I think this is the busiest I've ever been. It doesn't stop. I think on one level, it's been great for the DJs out there, lockdown, all of the live streaming. A lot of I think the connections have become a little bit more within reach. And I think everyone is connecting a lot more because, hey, we're reaching out a lot more now too. But yeah, the whole motherhood thing, look, I wouldn't change it for the world, as I'm sure you would understand that very well, having two of your own. But yeah, that doesn't stop either. So it really is a juggle. You're not wrong. It's 100% like a
Yes.
few balls at a time, so yeah, I have to actually apologize. I haven't had a time to clean this up. It's a bit of a mess. It's usually neater, especially for my live streams. It looks a bit better, but hey, we had to just make do and just get on and get this done.
Absolutely. But there's something kind of comforting about like a natural chaos, right? Like, behind me, you just see the poster. In front of me is carnage. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. And it's just it's organized chaos. And if one
It
person
is.
takes a bag out of like out of its positioning, it's just a volcano of shoes and everything. So I totally get it. But out of sight, out of mind,
Honestly,
it's all good. That looks like you've been very busy and you've been
I,
doing
I have been. I
so.
have been. Look, the streams haven't stopped. The mixes keep going. Some amazing achievements along the way too, which I wouldn't have thought would be happening through lockdown. But also because we are in lockdown, my husband works from this room too. So even just that in itself is a juggle. One going out, the other going in, and getting everything back to how we need it to be. So it doesn't stop. But it is what it is. We do what we can with what we got, and hey, we're making the most of it. So
Now you've
can I just
mentioned
say go?
You've mentioned achievements, and so I
Oh,
do want to talk about that. Walk us through what it is that that DJD does on an average week, but also walk us through what has been happening in your life. Obviously, again, you've mentioned with lockdown and DJs are online streaming a lot. I know I kind of entered that game a little bit last year, doing some live streams with you guys, and it's got to be a consistent thing. So if you want to sort of stay on it, it's an incredible platform, and you are consistently on it. So just talk us through a little bit about what your week looks like, and like, do you sleep? Are you one eye open? What's up?
honestly, it's a whirlwind. To give you an idea, my husband was just saying a minute ago, you don't tell me anything. I'm like, because it's literally that much happening that I don't get a chance to
Yeah.
spit it out half the time. Even like a lot of the things that I'm doing is spare of the moment, it just got arranged like half an hour ago or whatnot. But in terms of the streaming, yeah, I've had a great, well, more than a year now since we kind of kicked things off with 2020 Lounge in 2020 with the lovely Miss Hennessy as well, and all the other ladies hopping on deck. That was amazing. It was just so cool to have all the ladies spinning together, kind of like we used to, because, you know, back in the day there would be club nights and they'd pretty much always put the ladies together.
Yeah.
And there weren't many of us. There was obviously you, myself, Fly Girl T, DJ Leash came through as well, and a few others, of course Laces. Yeah. And we kind of, yeah, there was always that theme of let's have a girls' night. Yeah. And there'd be, you know, one or two of us on the bill, which is some wonderful memories that I share with you. I didn't get time. I really wanted to. I didn't get time to pull out some of the old posters that I have from some of the events you also shared, and we did together too. So I don't know, maybe I can send it over to you later or something.
You have stuff that, seriously, everyone, I'll just let you know, Dee is like, I thought I was a record keeper, right? And officially I was at one point. That's what I did with my life. So I have receipts, okay? Like every article, every picture. Okay, Miss Thing over here, every now and again will post something about, remember this night back in like 2000? And I'm like, where did she get this from? Like, it's brilliant though.
Literally, this room is like stepping back into an archive. It moved location, but everything came kind of as is. There's another wall of vinyl on the other side of this room. There's flyers. There's literally flyers on the floor because I wanted to send some to T and Leash from, I think it was like 2002. So I've got to pack those and mail them. And yeah, it's hilarious. I just constantly keep finding things, and it's like you know, passes from gigs and stuff that I've done back in the day. And
you should keep all that. I'm sure T and Laces and of course myself, Lee, should have some things. And one day we'll create a museum dedicated to the hip hop community here in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
With all of our things, you know, paying homage to the women, man. Like that's historical content right there. You keep that.
So many memories too. Like each one of these used to come to the clubs with me, and throwing them down, it really takes me back to certain events and certain times, you know, and I love that. That's why I still love vinyl. Sure, I can do the digital. I don't mind the whole, I'm not anti-controller or anything like that. As you might remember, I'm Pioneer endorsed now, so they've sent me a controller over to mess around with. So I'm totally for all of that. But for me, it's like the picture sleeve. It's the, I remember spinning that one back in the day in Canberra or wherever I was, you know. So it's just, yeah, it's those moments, you know, it's those real feel in the heart moments kind of thing.
Can I ask you too, because obviously with your love of vinyl and obviously having held that title of Australia's Premier Female Turntablist, like there's never really been a battle against that, because every time you have stepped into the DMC battle arena, you have literally walked out and won a lot of those events. I think just recently you won the recent Australian championship.
Yeah, so 2020, I was in the top 10. I came 8th, and then I won the Pioneer endorsement in the finals.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done, because I mean that is not easy by any means, right? Regardless of age, you know, sex, whatever it is, it's not an easy competition to get into. But we've just come through now what a week would be like for you, on top of also being a mom, being a wife, doing all these other things, and you still dedicate yourself to the craft of turntablism. You're still an incredible historian when it comes to waving the flag for our hip hop community and our roots, and you are a 90s baby at best.
100%. So I was born in the 70s, but 90s is my true love.
90s is her genre.
Late 80s as well. That whole sound, when it really started to sound like that golden era of hip hop, that's where my heart lies, you know.
I think that's where a lot of us really kind of forged our friendships, especially as peers. And of course, you represent the West Coast hip hop to the nth degree, right? So every concert, any West Coast artist that's here, if there's a club night, Dee would normally be the DJ of choice jumping on because of your love and your passion. Can I ask what it is about? Obviously, we know the 90s. A lot of people in our age group would love the 90s, but what is it about the West Coast that just has you buzzing the way it does?
Well, it's funny because, yeah, as you know, as you grow older, things change as well. I still have my heart there, 100%. For me, it was kind of a turning point in my teenage years, which, you know, is very formative. And it's kind of the first times where I saw things like lowriders hopping and hearing that typical West Coast sound that you would hear on something like, you know, Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style, for example. Above the Rim, still one of my favorite soundtracks. You know, that's the sort of sound that I fell in love with back then. This is also coming up, you know, in the 80s. I was hard listening to NWA and Public Enemy. I had the Public Enemy jacket, you know, with the fluoro green sleeves and hoodie, and I did it all. I had the leather necklaces, if you remember those. They're just on the other side of the room. Still got them. The leather Public Enemy and the leather Africa. Everyone was wearing, you know, the red, green, and yellows. And yeah, it was really just, I think, coming up through that time, we saw a lot of stuff, you know, a lot of stuff that made us at such a young age stop and say, hey, this doesn't feel right. Something's not right here. Things like, I'm referring to things like the Rodney King in the US and stuff. That would have been around 1990, I think.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, my early teens, and that kind of really made me, for the first time, seeing that and listening to Public Enemy and all that, made me really stop and think, hey, what's going on, you know? So I think what I've always loved about it is it's not just repetitive music. There's meaning there. They're telling stories. They're actually telling you things that are happening and going down that you're not hearing elsewhere. And just a reminder that this is obviously pre-internet. This is how we got the news, in a sense. You know, this is how we learned what was happening. So I think that's kind of what got me a little bit hooked. Of course, you probably know my love of samples. And this is where now in my later years, I'm going back further. It's the original like 70s, anything actually from 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s samples that made way for these 90s hip hop classics that I really love now. And that's what I spin a lot of in a lot of my sets. I'm part of a couple of collectives, including the 45 Kings Collective, where I spin a lot of that sort of stuff just on 7-inch vinyl. And yeah, actually I've just done a mix too, if you want to check it out online. It was trending just over the weekend, hitting like 6 or 7 charts, number 1, number 4, and I think it was in the vinyl charts, vinyl only charts, number 1 in funk. It was number 6 in hip hop, number 6 in underground hip hop. It was crazy. So there's some of the achievements that I was alluding to earlier on, as well as all the raid trains. So the raid trains is what it's all about now, where, you know, people are doing day-long or even 4-day-long festivals where DJs will play a set, raid into the next DJ, bring your people to them, and vice versa. And that's kind of how the love gets spread, you know.
So, world, my goodness,
it really is.
It's I mean, look, you've always been at sort of at the helm of that. How can I say it? Like, I guess for myself, having DJ'd for the amount of years that I did, and then when I stopped, and then went back into my writing. So for me, it sort of ebbs and flows. It'll be the writing for a while, and then I'll get back into DJing every now and again. But with the type of DJing that you do, you're in that for life. Like that is your career to the end. So you've always been at that helm of taking it further. And when I hear you sort of talking about all these different festivals online, and even with Twitch, I remember you tried to walk me through trying to hook that up. That was like,
I'm still learning. It's a never-ending process.
Just like for me, I'm just so put the CD in. I can rock a room. Doesn't matter what I'm playing with. But you've always been on that sort of upper echelon of even like that DJ sort of digital edge. So when I hear you saying all these things, my mind blows to know that there's that world that's out there.
It
And
really is. It's a nocturnal world, mind
oh my
you.
God, it's so nocturnal that's where that whole balance thing comes in. Because I know sometimes when I'll reach out to you when we've been trying to lock in this interview, and you've been, man, I've been doing an all-nighter, and I understand what those are, but a lot of people wouldn't imagine why, and they'd be, what have you been doing? Up on, all night DJing. So you're DJing in festivals, international time slots, right?
So yeah, especially considering things like time difference, I might be doing a set at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. or like I had the honor of supporting Maceo from De La Soul, which was nuts last year, Redman. I also did Dusty Donuts, which is a record label. That was actually amazing for me because that had Flip Out on there as well. He's an incredible DJ in the States as well. It's kind of like once you venture into the 7-inch only world, it's its own world as well, which is where I've sort of been kind of, I guess, building my reputation over the last year to 2 years. So yeah, that being said, DMC stuff is still there. I kind of a little bit missed out this year. It's still happening, and definitely have more to share there, just can't share at this present point in time, but stay locked and there will be some exciting stuff coming, as well as new tracks dropping, like working with artists and like, yeah. So when I say whirlwind, it is DJing, it's DMC, it's doing vinyl sets, it's doing all 7-inch sets, it's doing mixes for Mixclouds, it's live streaming, as we said. It's working with artists like I just received the master for a track that I did with Quez Outlaw from the Outlaws, so or affiliated, I should say, with the Outlaws, and it doesn't stop, so it's kind of on all levels and still expanding, because as you know, I do the radio show as well, and that just went national, so that's where most of the all-nighters go as well, because we're on the national network now. First mixed show ever to be on the national network, which is amazing in Australia. As well as the 1212s project, which I initiated last year. And that's where we're getting 100 DJs to create a mix from 12 of their 12-inch vinyl records. So it's all keeping that vinyl, real vinyl alive,
Absolutely.
So, and we're just hitting DJ number 50 this coming week. So yeah, that's why the all-nighter happened last night, to get the show in. So yeah, it doesn't stop.
But it's also, I mean, you don't want it to stop, especially when you still have so much passion and you still have so much to offer and to give this community. You've been DJing for years, right? Like, I mean, we've known each other going on nearly 2 decades now. I started off in radio, and that's when I met you, and then you got on radio, and then I got into DJing, and you'd always been DJing, and it's always so lovely to reminisce with another fellow female DJ, and especially a hip hop DJ here in Australia at the time. Like you said, when we were coming up, there weren't many of us, but you were always the same passion you had then is the same passion you have now, for what I see. What was it about DJing, especially turntable DJing? Because there's different DJing out there, and a lot of people don't understand that. I'm not a turntable DJ. I'm just a straight party DJ with CDs, because I came from radio and straight into the DJ world. So you started old school with the vinyl and got into DJing because you really just wanted to. But what was that initial drive? What was the spark? What made you want to become DJ Dee?
It started really young, and yeah, I was going to agree with you. There are, the typical DJs is the radio DJ, the club DJ or party rocker, turntablist, mixtape DJ, and then there was a newer label brought in, with kind of like the one that's kind of all about the looks DJ. That came later, obviously. Yeah, so, there is actually a particular term for it. I just won't use it right now. But there is Yes, there's a range of them. Look, for me, I've been lucky to kind of do, maybe not the looks one, but maybe a little bit of all of the other ones, which has been great. What I love, just before I forget, what I love about you and me in a sense is that what you've done in your DJ career, including radio, etc., I've kind of done the same, but in reverse.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? And now with the teaching as well, whereas that's kind of what I kick things off with. So it's literally almost like a mirror.
Yes.
And that blows my mind, you know. You were mum first, then I became mum as well. Yeah. Like all these links. So I've always had that ultimate, you know, respect for you too, because it really is kind of almost like, using the term loosely, a little bit of a soul sister in terms of, you know, we've done so many similar things and been one of only a few females doing that here, you know. So yeah, props to you as well. You know, you keep talking me up, but darling, you've done some amazing things in your time too.
Well, thank you. But it's all about you tonight, though. But thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. And it's true.
I'll turn the table.
We don't have. I don't think we have enough. You know, sort of people talking about us in terms of what it is that we've done, but maybe because they haven't really known what we've done. Again, coming from such a small community, where we were just getting on with it. You know, we weren't sitting there waiting for people to give us our flowers, right? We were just like, man, we got to go out here, and if we're going to do this, especially as women, we have to work 10 times harder to 100%. Get the recognition, get that staying power, and to be able to be put on, have our names put on posters and bills. And, you know, next week, come and check us out, because DJ Dee is going to be spinning live, and you got to hope that there's a line of people outside and those ticket sales are going to go. So, you know, when I look at footage that you put up on your Facebook and your socials about all the things you've done, the international gigs you've done, right? And this was at a time when I was only really getting to know you. I think when I first wrote on you in 3D magazine, it was that was amazing piece. And it was my first column I got given, and I just was like, I got to meet everyone that is inspiring me in this community. And I literally did it a bit selfishly, because I wanted to learn about everyone and didn't want people to tell me who to write about. And I remembered when I first met you, I was so like awestruck at this woman that was just out there fully dressed, which was so nice. Because, you know, we were out there fully dressed, but we had our heels on, honey, because that was our point of difference. Yeah. And you were rocking these parties like no one's business. And then you'd get off and you go, okay, see you later, everybody, go home. You weren't hanging out and just, you know, you were just together. And then you would go home and on to the next. And I was blown away. So
that's so lovely. Honestly, that article that you're talking about, I've got it down here, by the way. I've got it all in the archives. I've got the old 3Ds and everything. That article, though, that little bit blew my mind too when you wrote it, because one, it was written so amazingly, and so like some of the stuff that you just said, I was like, wow, that's so nice, especially when you've been going for, gosh, it was a long period of time. I'm not going to say a decade, but it was a long time. And you never really got props. And so you literally gave me, even though I'd been doing all this, you know, international whatever, you literally gave me one of the first proper props in a write-up. Because remember, for those that are listening, this is all pre-internet. This is all pre-World Wide Web in terms of how we know it today. I was actually working in the early days of web as well, via a couple of major companies, including the ABC. And it was the days of like fluoro screens and text only, and we just had an animated GIF, and there was like no video or no audio. None of that stuff was happening. Maybe a little sound, like an alert sound, that was it. You know, so it really was a different time, and you had to work in such a different way, you know. And of course, this is vinyl only days that you're talking about. We didn't have Serato and all these other, you know, digital means that we have today. So it really was a different time. And that meant, yeah, we were wearing heels, but we were carrying those 30 kilo crates, you know, into the vinyl.
Or the DJ with the wheels on it.
Yeah, I always had those, but it always got destroyed on the flights. I don't know why, how, but it always got damaged. So I don't know what these guys did with them. But yeah, look, many, many amazing stories, some crazy memories. Being one of the first ladies to spin in the Middle East and things like that. The stories alone, just from that one trip, I could probably write a whole book. Like, it just absolutely another world, another time, you know. And we're not that old. Like, we're still fairly
And
young.
I think this is the appeal, Dee, you know, and I guess this is what was the real catalyst for me to write this book. And because I remember sitting there going, you know, I need to do something with purpose. It's always been my thing. And I mean, I'm even going through it now. The stuff I'm doing, I don't even know why, but we're creative people, and it is what we do. So I needed to do something that was of immense value to the sisterhood that I felt that I was a part of. And I didn't know how to piece it together. And I remembered speaking to Jay, to my hubby, and he was like, you know amazing people, and you're a great storyteller, and I'm sure something will come, you know, but just don't overthink it, is what he told me, because I'm great for that. And then I was like, I know these kick-ass women, like amazing badass women, and I know that they have incredible stories that they haven't told me yet. And I wonder if they'd want to share it with the world. And when I was going through my list, you're always on a list somewhere with whatever idea I've got, because of what you've done for female DJs in this country. I don't know how many there are out there, but it's been great in the last few years to see so many more female DJs coming out. Not so much in the hip hop world, there's a few, but just in general, it's great to see females on a bill, a DJ bill. But there was always something elite about what you did and what you still do. So when it came to
for me, I get a real buzz doing stuff that hasn't been done before. Maybe it has in one way or form, but not in the particular way that I want to do it. For example, I'm still getting comments like what you're saying in terms of, there aren't really any other females that are doing 7-inch hip hop turntablist type stuff, you know, and that's just, for me, that's not why I'm doing it. That's, for me, that's how I roll. That's what I love, and that's what I do. You asked me earlier as well, why and how, in terms of the turntablist stuff, a little bit, in terms of, I guess, the reason for it is a little bit of what you had alluded to when you were saying that, as a female coming up, maybe we weren't getting the props or the breaks or the sort of, you know, equal respect that maybe we should have in some cases. And I think that's what really drove me to refine my skills as much as I possibly could. In terms of my skill set, I'm still not where I want my skill set to be. I still have aims and aspirations, just not enough time to, you know, you need to really get down there and spend days and refine and mess around and stuff. And I don't get that as a mum, really. So half the time I'm just kind of like, all right, let's just try this and hope it works, you know. So yeah, really, it was just to really show back then, which was in our local scene, very male dominated. I don't think, you know, coming up in the DMC turntablist stuff, I'm still only just in 2020 there was another female in Western Australia. A big shout out going out to Mishap. So that was actually awesome to see. Up until that though, I've pretty much been the only female to compete here, and of course, you know, place nationally and things like that. So even the boys these days, it's a different game now. You'd expect more. The fellas are also asking me, Dee, why aren't there more females? I'm like, I actually don't have the answer to that. I know it's a tough climb, and you got to really stick to that climb. You can't give up halfway. You have to keep going, you know, and it's, yeah, it ain't easy. But yeah, I hope to see more ladies on the decks and doing, you know, because it's such a beautiful medium, it's such a beautiful art form, and I think it really is, you know, obviously a big link to hip hop. And a lot of the female DJs tend to fall in other genres.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is what it is, and I'm in a sense blessed that I can represent the genre that I know and love. And I will continue to do so no matter what, you know. So
and I think
amazing.
what you said there too about, you know, obviously we came up with, it was and it always has been an extremely male dominated community, but how lucky were we that the guys we came up amongst were some of the dopest, coolest guys to come up with. They were literally like brothers, and so protective and so supportive and so like, yeah, like, you know, kind of cheerleadery from the sidelines. I mean, I never ever, and I've been asked this a couple of times with, you know, a couple of interviews I've done overseas, especially in the US, when my first book, How to Live for Love and Hip Hop, came out, and a lot of the American community at the time were like, wow, like, you know, female DJs, what's that about? And there was never like, oh, you know, did you feel that, you know, the sort of male chauvinism? I said, never. I never ever had to deal with that. Yeah, you know, when you come to, obviously, you know, when it comes to negotiating your rate of pay, as with women, we're still not where we should be. And that was always something that was glaringly obvious. But in terms of feeling sort of threatened, or it was never a feeling like that. Now maybe it's because our community is so small. I'm sure now it might, I don't know what it would be like now. Everything's changed.
I definitely had some challenges coming up. I don't know if it's maybe in terms of more the battle scene. I felt like in those probably more late 90s, early 2000s, I definitely felt tried and tested a few times. It's kind of also why I always used a generic name like DJ Dee, because you wouldn't know if that's a female or male initially. And there were even situations where I was booked for interstate gigs and then cancelled when they found out it was a female. Ooh. So yeah, I have many stories. Gosh, DJ Sabotage, in terms of, you know, stuff happening before you going on your set. I've got lots of stories, but that maybe one day I'll write a book. But yeah, I think they're all the things that pushed me to say, I ain't going to take that. I'm going to prove myself, not through words, not through actions. I'm going to prove myself through these. And that's really what pushed me to say, I'm not going to talk to whoever did that funny business. I'm just going to show them what's what.
Right there, that's the example of, I guess, the different worlds that each DJ is in. So you were in that battle world. So that battle world is a different world compared to the world.
You know what, though? I think, and I'm not saying that, you know, those people were intentionally nasty or anything like that. I think that just comes with that world in a sense, because people are hyped. They're like, I'm going to win. This is it, you know? You got to be ready for that in a sense. So you can't sort of run away whimpering. You got to say, okay, let's go. You know, you got to kind of have that drive, that comeback. And I guess being raised in Marrickville in the 80s, early 80s, that was part of, you know, you grow up with that. That's in the blood. So, and I think that's why I also kind of connected with things like West Coast music. Not saying that we lived through the same things that they spoke about in songs, but there were some similarities. And in terms of that, you know, challenges, and, you know, life was not maybe so easy and things were happening on the streets, you know, lots of stories there too. But we lived through it, we learned, we survived, you know. Everyone's got a background with stories like that, no doubt. I had a great upbringing though, thankfully, just, you know, going to school and in those streets and things, you see things, you learn things that maybe are not, you know, the best way, but you learn from it, and you are who you are.
We're a product of those environments, and we are survivors. And I think, you know, when you look at the longevity that we've had in this hip hop community and in this industry, it's a testament to the upbringings we've had. I mean, I was raised here from the age of 12, but obviously born in South Africa and born in Johannesburg. You know, you say that and people kind of go, whoa, like, I'm like, yeah, that's my lineage. So, but just because I was born there, you know, it doesn't mean that, I mean, yeah, I saw a lot of things, and I saw things that go on. My kids, I would never want them to see. And my mum and dad were like, well, we don't want you to see that. So we're going to try to find somewhere else that's going to be a safer haven. So being an immigrant in this country, and at that time, I think we came here in '88, you know, Australia was going through its own.
Bicentennial.
Oh, the bicentennial, but it was also going through its own, you know, conversation with, you know, multiculturalism and race and all of these things. And mention hip hop. Hip hop was always just a trend. It was never going to stick around. So here I come going, yeah, I want to be a DJ. And my dad's going, oh my God, that's what? And then I'm just like, yep, I'm dedicating my life to DJing. And he's like, yeah, no, you're not. Maybe have that as the side hustle. And
same story.
Work, right? So we've always had hip hop as a side hustle, but man, it's been good to us.
It's my life. I know people might look at that and say, oh, she's just a white girl, what's she talking about? But it really, like, I really have dedicated my life to representing it in some way or form, whether, you know, obviously turntablism is the most obvious way, but it's once it's in here, it's like, I'm not me without it.
I feel you, honey. I really, really do. And I think, you know, it's a blessing, and it's something that has brought, you know, people like you and I together, and then a couple of other women in the book like Mira and, you know, Queen G and you know, like Maya Jupiter, just these incredible women that we've all come up with in
our history, right?
Right, strong, empowered women. And
a lot of people wouldn't know, but my first date with my now husband was at Maya's birthday. And it was at the old bar, I think it was, on Oxford Street. So, yeah, there's links like everywhere. Mira went to high school with my husband. Like, there's links just nonstop, you know. And I love that, though, you know, because I was hanging out with Mira and had no idea that she went to high school with my husband. Like, absolutely zero. Big shout out to you, darling. So I love finding out those connections. And that's, that just the things that give you those little tingles and chills, you know, and I love that. It's kind of like this was meant to be how it is.
I think so. In the bigger scheme of things, I think so. And I think, you know, when the book came out, and I shared it with you girls first before we posted it online, and I was a little nervous because I was like, oh, you know, they're gonna see the cover, and I hope they like it. And the overwhelming response from all of you with what it looked like was just confirmation to me that I had done the right thing by not only myself but by all of you, and by allowing your stories to be shared in your voices. As a writer, I've always wanted to be truthful and as authentic as I can be, especially my love of writing about other people's stories, because that's my thing. I love writing about the history of the journey of the person. And your history is particularly interesting because you intertwine your love of hip hop from go to woe. When you wrote that chapter, or when you got the email from me asking
that really long one, yeah.
Thank you. And I was about to say, because I love an essay. I love to be a little bit Emily Bronte when I'm writing to her. Yep. And you came back going, Max, yes, you know, just hold your breath, honey. Yeah, we'll do whatever. It's all good. But when you did read it and you knew what it was about, what did you think? What were your first impressions of it?
Look, for me, it was one, an honor, but two, I was excited to do it because again, these are all things that are just coming to mind that I haven't thought about for years. But, you know, in high school, I did things like 3-unit English, and I've got a couple of degrees under my belt as well. So the essay thing, it's going to happen. But in terms of, back in high school, I remember my 3-unit English teacher saying, Dee, I think one day that the way that you are and what you do, I think you can be an author. Oh. So it's not something that I've pursued at this point in time, but it's something always stuck in the back of my head, you know, one of those things that you don't forget. And so when you sent that over, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can flex a little bit of this stuff that we were, you know, that she was talking about back then. But more also, it's a lovely moment to be able to, especially as a mum, where you don't get time to do such things usually, to just be able to sit down and reflect and think about some of the questions that you posed, such as, you know, like, you know, why vinyl and why DJing and why turntablism in a sense, and just bringing back memories, which I didn't mention here yet, but memories of, you know, being a toddler on the floor, not having very many toys at all, but finding my dad's record collection, which is now here with me, and seeing those colored labels, and sort of, they were like pieces of candy to me, you know, they were my toys. And that's kind of, I guess, a little bit where it all started. I became the human jukebox for when, you know, the old folks came over for coffees and things. I'd be like a girl in a chair to get up onto that, you know, the big wooden with the dome TV entertainment systems, like they look archaic, right? Yeah, that was my first turntable, and I'd be the human jukebox for them while they had their coffees and things. And it kind of just grew from there to, like, my sister used to sell vinyl at things like Newtown markets and all that back in the 80s. This is all pre, you know, there's Newtown record fairs, they're back. But back in the 80s, they were a big thing. And I used to be her little assistant at the stalls and, you know, pass the change to people and even make things and jewelry to sell and all sorts of stuff, you know.
You can
5
see
years
it
old.
happening. You can see
yeah,
it.
it's all these things kind of just came into play to lead me to where I am, I guess. Sure, I've had an amazing career as a teacher for about 20 years, but I honestly started and did that to support my vinyl habit. So that's basically what funded this room of vinyl. And that was my real love. So how your dad had said, you know, real job, do it on the side. My real job was the teaching, and then on the side I did all this. But that meant, you know, full-time work. I was a head teacher as well. So, you know, running all the courses and, you know, a few hundred people working sort of in terms of students, a few hundred students, and, you know, God knows how many staff that you're managing. And then you'd be flying like to the Middle East over the weekend to do a gig, and then come back and then you do it all again. And the next weekend was somewhere else. And it's kind of like there was a point where I felt like I was on a plane every single weekend, and I get plane sick. I don't like going on planes.
Oh, wow.
So it's just like a crazy, awesome time, but crazy time, you know. So I'm glad, because it felt like I a little bit lived my life as well. Worked hard, but I lived at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. And I get that. I think, you know, a lot of the incredible highs that we had in terms of our sort of heady days of DJing and those early days of our careers is we obviously we didn't have our kids yet. We would have had our partners, but we didn't have to worry about that added responsibility of parenthood. So if you had to fly, I mean, you could fly. I remembered playing, you know, every once a month I was, you know, flying to Melbourne to, you know, do a gig in Melbourne, or, you know, one weekend going to Perth, or, you know, going to the Gold Coast and all these things, and then holding residencies in Sydney at a couple of clubs. And that is not an easy feat. So we did it at the right time, because I think once our kids came, and life didn't slow down, it just, the direction changed. We didn't stop being cool DJs, we just became cool DJs who were mums. And that's how I've always looked at it. You know, I've always tried to avoid the question of, oh, my life stopped because then I became a mum. And I think a lot of the time when you do that, it's like you dismiss the amazing things you did. But because you've become a mum, does that mean that trumps it? No, it doesn't. You can do it all. You just got to find a little bit of balance. And I think we've done that. You know, we might lose a little bit of less sleep, but shit, we'll sleep when we're old. You know, that's how I live.
I'm well trained for that.
Sleep when you're old. Okay.
Well, my thing was, like, my life did stop for a short period of time, and I didn't feel like me anymore for, I'm just talking for maybe a year, or that first year where it's really like I didn't really have extra hands here to help me, you know, hubbies at work and whatnot, so literally just me and Bub. And things do stop in terms of, you know, I was running a company, I was running a business, I was DJing at a radio show, working full time. That all stopped, but I maintained the radio show, which kept me going because I could do that whenever. And now, because I was like, oh, I can't, I really want to keep this going, you know. He live streams with me now. So he's done a few live streams this year. He was the only kid, he's part of 45 Kids as well. They spin all 45. It's the most beautiful thing ever, and it gives a few proud DJ parents a moment as well. But he was even part of the a worldwide festival that had, like, I think it went on for something like, I can't remember, it was like 4, 5, 6 days, and he had his own set in that worldwide festival, and it was just nuts. Like, it was a lot of pressure at the time, and he was, you know, it's hard to control a 4-year-old, but yeah, it's just such a moment looking back, you know. So yeah, if you find a way, is I guess what I'm trying to say. You find a way, and my way was to get him involved.
Yeah, and that's it, and that's what you've got to do. I mean, I remember doing the radio and station and having the kids come in with me, you know, and Jay and I would do the show together, you know, for about a year or two we did, until his sort of shift work sort of got involved and changed. But you know, the kids had come with, and they've seen Mum do things from, you know, obviously when the nightclub DJing stopped, and then I started teaching and then DJing at schools and school discos, and so my kids were going, wow, that's Mum. I think it's important to invite your children into your world, if we can, and if we're lucky enough to, and to do what we're doing, because your son is clearly, he's in a musical family, you know, incredible, talented dad, you know, vocalist, teacher, incredible mom, DJ, teacher. So it's not going to be surprising that he doesn't take some lead somewhere, you know, and it would be wrong to not slightly encourage or cajole, if you can, see that there is an interest, and he obviously does have that.
Oh, he thankfully he does, and it's not something I've ever kind of forced upon him. I've always said, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Yeah, Mum, and then we'll do it, you know. Yeah. But he was one of those babies that I've got footage of him. It was only a couple of weeks old, and I'd put on some hip hop, and he'd be, like, he can't even stand up yet or sit up, but he'd be dancing. You know, I've got little video clips of him as a baby just dancing to, like, Biggie and all sorts of stuff. He really liked Biggie for some reason. Yeah. He was a Biggie baby too, but he really liked Biggie. So I don't think he was much, sorry, rest in peace. I obviously do like some Tupac. He wasn't so into Tupac, and it didn't really fancy Cypress Hill, but he really liked Biggie. So that's what he got. And of course, Blackstreet, Jodeci's, all of that.
It may have just been his voice. You know, Biggie does have quite a distinctive voice, and whereas Tupac is a lot more authoritarian, and I think it just might be that. But I mean, look, music. I mean, look, my eldest boy Bailey, he's obsessed with Nas, and he has been from, I think, from 5 when I introduced him to, you know, Whose World Is This, and that was his little anthem, you know. So now he's, you know, he's into it all. He's loving his Nas. He's obsessed with Nipsey Hussle, and you know, and the little one. Oh my gosh, he's a whole other. That's a different kettle of fish. The 4-year-olds of today are really incredible little human beings. So
I think we understand each other on that one. I've seen those two together.
I know, they're so cute together. They really are. I have to ask, you know, obviously, just bringing it back to the book, and we will wrap up because I know you've got night time ahead of you.
The work starts.
Just a nice segue. Your thoughts, obviously, on the book when you know, initially saw it, and I don't know if you've managed to read all of it or if you've gotten just little drips and drabs out of it, but what were your thoughts when you saw it? How did that make you feel?
What I loved, and it all goes back to this history that we've been talking about, I loved that you brought everyone together, because in a sense that was kind of a little bit the missing link when you look back through time, yeah, we were all around and we were doing our things, but we weren't ever really brought together. And I think you really have a knack for doing that. You've always kind of done that really well. Things like as well, SOS. I was going to put,
gosh,
I think I'm somewhere.
That was great. That was a really
that was amazing, right?
Experience. Shout out to Marsha and Gordon for that one too. That was incredible. Yeah, we did. And that I loved that shoot.
My son's put a sticker on it, of course.
Right on T's butt, right there.
Sorry, T.
That was a great project, and it literally started off as what? It was a photo shoot about.
Yeah, I've got the book here somewhere. Here it is. Here it is. Oh, things are falling. Okay, hey, there.
That's it. It was called Low and Slow. That was it.
And that was like the first time my two worlds collided, because you know my love of 6/4. I've got a 6/4 and all that. And your son was one of the first people in that 6/4. You might remember.
Oh, yeah, when you first got it, and he was. We were over at your place, literally practicing for this event that we were DJing at. Oh man, that is so cool. Honestly, it was this incredible photographic exhibition we were involved in. Shout out to this incredible couple, Marsha and Gordon, for just, that's a great shot for us for wanting to do this. But I think when Marsha and I were talking about it, look at T, incredible.
That's a good shot.
That was the shot that we did at the airport with the helicopters. I know I still use that photo to this day. Oh, never will I look that good again. No, I love it. Just because we're in lockdown and the hair's not done, but it's okay. But that was it. I remember that was such a great, because it was the first time the three of us actually got to work together as the three female, like the lead at the time, the three sort of leading female DJs, hip hop DJs, because there were other ones, of course, but they were wanting to work with, I think, the top three. And when myself and Marsha at the time were talking, and she's like, oh, what do we do with DJs? And I was like, well, they're going to be a photo shoot, but why don't we, there were these women, and I mentioned you and T, and then it just snowballed from there. And it all, before we knew it, we were up on a wall in these floor to ceiling canvases and on a CD. And it was brilliant. It was the first time I ever did a mix on a CD. And I remember you walking me through that.
Such a good one too. I still love that. I love playing that on the show as well. But I'm referring to this, not to digress from the book, but rather really show, in case you didn't already see it yourself, you really are a bit of a master of bringing people together and just creating such awesome stuff. Like this was dope, and you're a big part of that. And this next book now as well. Super dope. And I love that the ladies get a chance to have a voice. I think that's the most incredible part, Yeah, we all talk, we all got voices, but when you bring it all together, it's just that much more powerful, And yes, I've had a bit of a read. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I've had a read of quite a good chunk. And just like a lot of these people I actually know, and to read more of their stories that I didn't know, I love that too. That's amazing. It's awesome. And I have to ask, was it intentional that I ended up on page 64?
No, did you? Are you really? Okay, that's universal. There's no way, because I had nothing to do with the actual printout, like the formatting. It was more. I want it to be alphabetical, so the girls have to be put alphabetical, and I want their pictures on the cover. So that was more my input, but my distribution partner in the US was the layout person. So I didn't even know that. I mean, I'm cool, but I'm not that cool, Dee.
Honestly, I thought you might have done it intentionally. So, at the book launch, whenever someone asked me to sign it, I'd circle the page number and say straight out of the 6/4. or cruising down the street in my 6'4". So that's what I do in most people's books. So yeah, no, it was awesome. That day was just magical.
Yeah.
Absolutely magical.
Oh, and the pain, not, I won't say pain, but obviously, as you know, when you've been involved in events and things like that, and I'd never ever thrown a book launch for myself before, because my first book, I just literally released it online, and that was it, did the online promo stuff, but I needed to do this. I needed to do a proper launch, not just for the book, but also obviously for the publishing house to really solidify this next chapter in my life as a writer and a self-publisher. But it was also just a great way of getting everyone together. And I know a lot of the ladies, obviously there's about 6 or 7 of them that weren't here, living overseas, and then obviously out of the interstate. But for the ones that were and that made the effort to come out, because it was a bit of a rainy day, it was just great.
And it was energy. Out of our first sort of round of COVID things as well. So that's always a challenge, putting an event on during that time.
It really was. And I just wanted something intimate but open and just easy. And it exceeded everything that I thought. And I know moving forward with other launches, I know that's the mix I need to do. But I really loved it, and I just sat back looking at it. It was like a reunion of sorts.
Amazing. Yeah, especially because we'd been in this 2020 lockdown and we hadn't seen anyone for so long too. That was great to see everyone. And yeah, it was just an amazing event. So thank you for putting that one on. That was incredible. Nobody wanted to go home, I was just saying. And yeah, it was great. It turned into a real, felt like a family party. It was awesome.
Well, I'm glad that was the feeling it had, and that's the feeling that I've sort of wanted to stay around with the book, and then with this series, is just to keep the conversation going, because I think, especially now, again, I keep saying lockdown, but with the world going through a second dose of this nightmare we're living in, I think, online platforms such as this that present positive conversation, especially directed at female empowerment, and not in that sort of bra burning sort of wow 70s.
It's not what we are, really, is it?
No, it's not. And there's always been conversations around the word empowerment, and is it still something that's used? Absolutely it is. Do women still refer to themselves as empowered? We damn sure do, because we are, and we have to be. So for this book and for this series, it's important to have these conversations. So I guess in closing, what are your thoughts? I mean, how do you see yourself fitting into that empowered woman role? What makes Dee empowered?
I think the best way I can probably say is kind of, I guess, looking back historically, representing for the ladies where ladies weren't really represented. That's kind of been my motivation for maybe not everything I do, but for a lot of what I do. So definitely sort of taking a stand and sort of saying, hey, us ladies can do it too. And for me, that empowers me to be able to take that challenge of, again, male dominated society, whatever it might be, maybe a profession that, how many ladies are rolling in a 6'4", how many ladies are actually working on that 6'4", and there are some, definitely, and there are some even, in Hollywood and all that really legit do that. And I have respect for that, because there's no reason why a lady can't do that too. And there's no reason why a lady can't hold it down in the DMCs. No reason why a mum can't hold it down in the DMCs, I can now say. Prior to last year, I would have been like, oh, I wonder if I can still do it, with a kid and everything, because you don't get the time. But yeah, you can, So I think it's empowering me, but at the same time, hopefully empowering others, or inspiring is probably a better word, inspiring others to maybe just take that moment and say, hey, maybe I can do something too. Maybe it doesn't have to all end as soon as I become a mum. Maybe I can still do that thing that I really wanted to do that I haven't done yet.
That is it, honey.
That's really that. Plus, of course, you know, we do stuff for our little ones. I want him to be able to say, oh, my mum did that. You know, he was so excited when I got the winning thing from the DMC. You could hear him screaming from the other room, you know, like that's joy.
Yeah.
How are you going to not, you know, be empowered from joy like that? It's just like,
and that's who we do it for at the end. I think when you become a mum, you know, you no longer what we once did for ourselves, which we had to do to set ourselves up and to, you know, I've always been in competition with one person, and that's just been me. I'm not a fiercely competitive person in terms of, you know, I guess maybe that's why I would suck at being a battle DJ, because I just be, oh my bad, you're better than me, you need to take that, because that's not my role, right? But in terms of when you hold a position and you know what it took to get there, I'm competitive with myself, because you better keep holding on to it. You better be consistent with the hard work you put through. So you've done this book, so what's next? So you've done this show, so what's next? And that's the conversations I have with myself. But I think when your kids come along, man, it changes that conversation, and you're like, what can I do next so that they can brag about? You know, what can I do next so they can say, my mom did that, you know, yeah, well, my mom did this. Like, it's just, it keeps you, I think it keeps you honest, and it keeps you on your toes.
It does, and I think the one that always brought a smile to my face and still does, just him saying, my mum is a DJ. Yeah. You know, it doesn't even have to say turntablist, just say DJ, and he does, you know, my mum is a DJ. That's it for me. That's my full stop. I'm happy. You know, that's all I need. I think for me, just the last point would be, a lot of my drive is keeping things alive that I saw at that point as maybe not expiring, but sort of running thin, like things like vinyl. There was a point in time where it sort of died down a little bit with all the technology. It's alive and well today. There's no problem today. Yeah. But there was a point in time, maybe, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, where it sort of dwindled a little bit. And I was like, nah, we've got to do something about this. Let's do mix bosses. Let's do all of this stuff to keep that vinyl format alive. And a lot of the projects that we do, I still, you know, drive that way, because it does keep it going. So yeah, it's that, the vintage cars, same sort of thing, keeping that sort of era and that beautiful, you know, historical thing alive as well. So I love sort of bringing life back to those things that maybe have either settled or maybe haven't been loved for a while, or, you know, bring some love back to that. That's my other little sort of angle of why I do what I do. So yeah. You know, they're all beautiful things, aren't they?
No, I know. It's all important stuff, though, and I think, you know, as we get older, we were so blessed to come up in the time frame that we did. Not only in the time frame of hip hop and what hip hop was doing. Hip hop was really at its peak when we were coming up as well, and these artists were so much more accessible than they are today. You know, to be a music journalist back then and an up and coming radio host, you were able to get interviews with these incredible artists. I mean, I remembered every other week speaking to huge names, from 50 Cent to Snoop to Missy Elliott, to, like, people were coming to our shores for festivals and for concerts like it was nothing. Like, you know, so I look at it now, and I really do feel for the younger generation now, especially going through COVID. The DJs trying to come up now, there's no real club scene anymore. And after the lockdowns and what COVID's done to our entertainment industry, what's going to happen? I'm hoping for a surge, and I'm hoping for a reset.
I think we've always talked about, even, you know, over the last couple of decades, a lack of handover. I think things like lockdown really stopped that from happening, you know. So look, time will tell. There's always, sorry to use a term, but where there's a will, there's a way. You know, things will breathe life again, organically, naturally. It'll happen. I'm actually a little bit blown away that a lot of this stuff is alive and well via these online streams and these other worlds that we're talking about. You know, it's so nice to see that, hey, it's not actually as small as I thought. There's a lot of people holding it down on the vinyl tip around the globe, you know. So and amongst other things, little cars, lowriders, car clubs, all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, it's reassuring. It's actually, you know, it keeps me positive to see, you know, all of these people are having the same sort of thoughts and passions and just want to get back out there. Like, we want to go cruising the streets again. We miss that. You know, I can't wait to roll again. It's yeah, we'll get to.
We will, and I like that perspective. See, you can tell I'm not in the digital world, so I didn't even know that there were festivals going on. So now that I know, the feelings of humdrum are not as humdrum, because now I'm like, oh, there is hope, and there's innovation, and this is how we move forward. So
there really is. It's just usually on the nocturnal tip, so you kind of lose that sleep.
Not so much sleep. People, days rolling into nights, honey. Please, every day looks the same.
The energy comes in other ways, you know, seeing all of that alive and well, just energized anyway. So yeah, join us in some of them.
Well, I'm gonna have to, because you know what? Well, I don't need to get that extra hour of sleep, so I'm gonna go put on another face, and I'm gonna join in and get involved.
I'll make you a black coffee.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That special mama's brew. Thank you, my love, for your time tonight and for your trip down memory lane. That was so wonderful to see that book and to talk about those things we were involved in, and just your perspective and of course your passion and what you continue to do for DJs in this country and no doubt around the world, and who you're reaching right now. Just stay shining, Dee, and you're an absolute.
Mama gonna keep pushing, that's for sure. And yeah, hey, I was gonna say we could literally do so many episodes once I start hitting these archives to my left over here. Wait till you see some of these articles and flyers. And it's a stack. This big. Yeah, I'll hit you up with a few.
Please do, and please keep those. Hold on to it, because I mean what I say. I do envisage some sort of museum of some sort that we dedicate to our hip hop community and what we've done here. And I think those things need to be housed safely.
Definitely.
So. Thank you, my love. Good luck with everything, and we'll talk again soon. Stay safe.
Much love to you and the fam and the little ones.
Thanks, darling. You too. Bye.